2022, and we have some participants from the retreat. We will introduce each of you. Please.
Sure, I'm from the Bay Area, and I discovered this online. I was going to do an ayahuasca retreat before COVID, but obviously that changed everything. And I had another place in mind, but then once I became more committed to coming, I started looking, and I'm very grateful that I discovered your place, and this was definitely the right choice for me. So, yeah.
And my name's Abby. I'm from Boston, and I originally started this journey in India. I was planning on doing a whole 6-week backpacking trip there, and I quickly realized 4 days in that I was in the wrong place, and I felt very called to do ayahuasca. I've always been interested, but just felt like it was the right time this month. And yeah, researching a bunch of places, and I was very right.
I'm Jimmy. I'm from Idaho. This is my second ayahuasca retreat. First one I did was in Costa Rica, but this one was phenomenal. Head and shoulders above my previous experience. So just very happy to be here.
My name's Ryan. I'm from Canada, and when I was looking for ayahuasca experiences, I was looking for something that was more than just a place to take ayahuasca. I was looking for a place that actually had some structure to it, had some self-development exercises, and had teachers to help you digest all the information that you get from the plant. So that's how I came across Spirit Vine. I was looking for great centers in Brazil and stumbled across this one, and I'm so glad I came.
You did a retreat before.
Yeah, I did another retreat in Brazil before.
Would you like to tell us about your experience? You don't need to say the name of the center, but if you can talk a little about the differences in the organization.
Yeah, I did another retreat in, it was another smaller center with some shamans. And it was a very different experience because in that one it was more experiencing the ayahuasca, and it was less about really learning. And that's what I really got from this center. This center was all focused around the learning and the experience, so that you could actually take things away from the ayahuasca, then digest that, and then use it in your life. Instead of just having a journal full of notes, I have a lot of really concrete ideas now coming out of this week-long experience.
And you, Jimmy, what you can say about?
So what attracted me to this was your clinical approach and your clinical background. I thought this approach was very structured because there was a lot of one-on-one time, and it was I just thought it was much more fruitful, and you could using the structured approach, it was, I mean, every detail was taken care of. It was completely thought out ahead of time, and it all made sense. And the structure really made it a much more effective experience. So I think just the clinical approach, the structure, the diet, the regimen really enhanced the whole experience, and that's why I really appreciated this approach a lot more.
In the other retreat, you told me there were like 60 people.
There at least 60 people. The diet wasn't as strict, and I understand now after after kind of learning about what does and what doesn't interfere with the medicine, that there are certain things you should and shouldn't have, period. And if you do, it's just going to cause problems that are going to interfere with the whole process. So it was pretty unstructured. There wasn't really one-on-one time, and you could get something out of the experience, but it was not nearly what you could get out of this experience because it was designed for the medicine, and that's what makes it different.
What was the workshop that you enjoy more, or that you discover more things about yourself, or something that was completely surprising for you?
Personally, the workshop on victimhood was one of the most powerful for me. Where when I first saw it and I was seeing like the victim triangle, I thought, oh, like I already know this stuff. Like I feel I don't fall into this ever. I've got no problems with victimhood. But then I started seeing then showing how that could be flipped to where there's like a victimhood side, but then there's an empowerment side, and seeing how I've been falling into traps mostly around things like making goals that were too big and then failing on them, but thinking that I tried, instead of setting the empowerment side would be setting smaller, more attainable goals and working your way up. So there was a lot of learning in that particular workshop.
So you were feeling the victim to yourself.
Yeah,
Failing.
I was definitely a victim to myself. I didn't feel really victimized by other people, but I was a victim to some of my own bad
So
habits.
you were all the roles.
Yeah, I was running around that triangle.
And for the others,
There was one workshop where I was surprised how interesting it was, where we all had to choose a certain word and kind of describe what the word means to us and kind of like the weight of the word. And again, everyone was sharing their word, didn't really see any connection, but towards the end, after each 10 people shared their words and what it meant to them, I just saw such like a weave between all of it combined. And I think it was just a good representation how not only did I learn from the medicine, but I honestly mostly learned just from each and every person. And it was very clear that everyone was meant to be here. I really learned just so much, and I feel like everyone just had a little piece to a puzzle that kind of connected. And yeah, I think this sense of like community was the biggest and most helpful part for me. And also, being able to work with you guys one-on-one was also really helpful. It was, kind of like therapy meets psychedelic retreat meets nice oasis. It was really just everything that I could imagine.
I would agree with Ryan. The victimhood seminar was very empowering. And not only did I see how it applied to me, but I also see others in my life and how they fall into those certain roles. And learning and the connection with personal power and how that is one's ability to determine where one is going to be in that, and the ability to get yourself out of those roles, I think was really important to me. And a funny little story was on the medicine. I have a thing in my work where there are things that I take very personally and get wrapped up in, and I think I get a little bit too wrapped up in. And in that case, I'm trying to be the savior. And then as I'm the savior, then I find that I start resenting being the savior and I become the victim, And while I was on the medicine, I was having these things occur physically where I felt like I needed to scratch myself, I needed to touch myself because these things were bothering me, and I kept getting this message that you need to leave this alone, you need to let it go. And so I would resist it, and it was as if she was saying, I will take care of it for you, but you have to take care of it yourself. You have to resist these impulses. And that was really meaningful and strong for me because it applied exactly to the rest of my life, my work life, and so on, that I don't have to get wrapped up in those impulses and everything. And I can fix them, I can do it, but I don't have to be emotionally connected to that to make a difference. And so the recognition of that was really big for me.
interesting. Do you think this impulse to be a savior is because of guilt, probably?
Sure. I mean, the idea that I need to be, I think, show others that I am really trying hard, that I care enough to want to make a difference. But even though in that one way that sounds really noble, but in another way, it's just letting myself get wrapped up into this process, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes these people are just really drawing off of me, sucking off of what I am bringing to that and using that for their own, whatever they're coming from. And so the recognition of that is going to be so profound for me, because I feel like and I know I'll recognize it, and as it occurs, I'm just going to be able to sit back, and I will remember the seminar, and I know it will carry with me.
Did you discover the first time that you started feeling the need to show that you are trying hard?
Yeah, I think I've always been that.
There was a first time.
There was a first time. And I'm the oldest of I have two other brothers. And I originally came here, there's been some trauma in my life. And so I think as the older brother, I wanted to fix things for my siblings, make things better for them, trying to teach them what I think I know, and so on. And like I said, while that can be noble in terms of the idea, but actually there's a process to doing that allows also, I think, other people to accept responsibility for what's going on, and learning that there are boundaries too, so that I can keep my power, I can keep my energy in these situations, in these circumstances, and not be so drawn into it that it's unempowering to me.
But also, I remember, I don't know if you want to share that. If you don't want, we can.
I'll share anything, I don't care.
When you said that your mother was suffering and you wanted to take her pain.
Yes, I did.
So, first, your mother is not suffering anymore.
I know.
Right now, she's not suffering, but still
Right.
you are feeling the pain.
That was the guilt.
The guilt.
That was
That's
the
why
guilt.
I asked you.
Yeah.
You are feeling guilt, that's why you want.
Sure, I did. And so my mother did suffer trauma, and she ended her life, and I had carried that with me. And I actually came here thinking that that's what I have to fix. I have to resolve that. And in an interesting way, it did resolve, but not in the way that I expected that it was going to resolve. It resolved in a very different way.
Can you tell us a little? How did you resolve it?
So I think that recognizing that she had her pain, she had her life, that was not really something that I brought onto her, was very important to me. So I have the power to deal with this, and I don't have to be a victim of what the situation was in the past.
The problem was that when this started happening, you were a child.
Right.
And you didn't have the power and the resources you have now. So the decision you took in your childhood about your mother, about your role in this, was the decision of a child.
Correct.
And that decision created a pattern of behavior in your life. You
It
have
definitely
to be the
did.
savior.
Right.
So, but now, the man you are now,
Right.
understand things different. No, you are not responsible for her pain because you didn't cause it,
Right.
and you cannot do nothing about that.
Right.
So now you understand things different, and you need to rescue the child that took that decision.
Right.
How you did that?
Well, I'll tell you, I think that was the last ceremony that we had, honestly, because it was in nature. And I was really able to see who I am as a child, what I always have been. I've always been an explorer. I've always been fascinated by nature. And that last ceremony brought all this together in a way that there is who I am. There is the inner child, the beautiful kid that I've always been. And I've rediscovered that part of myself. And that was, as we were talking before, it wouldn't have been right to have had that ceremony in the beginning. It was the best at the end because it brought everything together.
You have to earn that.
Yeah, I had to earn it. And I felt like such a kid.
Yeah.
I felt like such a kid because when it was time to, when the first hour and we were asked if we would have permission, I felt like such a kid, like, can I go? Can I go? And that was really, that is me.